AI art is going to be dead in 2 years, maybe 1 year. Oh my God, it's all over. That's wrong, and that's kind of panicking for no reason. I'm not saying this because I use AI art or I'm an AI artist or I'm way invested in AI art. I am saying this because I'm an author and artists have just hit the self-publishing phase. Yes, artists have hit a phase in the art community and the art world as a whole that authors hit about 10 years ago with the introduction to Smashwords and Amazon KDP and publishing yourself. That is what they're going through right now, and it's causing a lot of them to panic. And I'll explain why in a quick video. So I just watched a video about why AI art's gonna be dead in 1 to 2 years, and I understand his point, except I have a counter-production to that, or counterpoint to his whole thing, because a lot of what he said in the video is a good point, but they're mute points. And here's why. It's gonna cover pretty quickly, and I don't have to get into each of the points that he mentioned, because some of them are valid, but they're also going to be completely made invalid by some of the things that are about to happen in AI. I actually did a podcast on the copyright issue he mentioned, and as I was recording the podcast, well, after I finished it, I had to go and re-record it because something I mentioned in the podcast that was going to happen in a couple months actually happened that day to completely make what I recorded and what I said completely relevant. That's how fast it's happening. That something I thought was going to happen in maybe 6 months happened in 2 days. The copyright issue was nothing AI art makes can be copyrighted as is right now in the United States. This is not the same for every other country, but it is right now in the United States that way. So anything generated from a prompt cannot be copyrighted. They're saying that it has to be 70% generated by a human person first, which doesn't make sense, because even as an artist, if you draw or sketch the item that you use in the AI generated art first, it is still not 70% because the AI takes that image, processes it, and completely regenerates everything 100%. So you're still only inputted a prompt and thus removes what they actually said, making anything you draw and use AI art to help you finish still not able to be copyrighted. Now, the reason I mentioned the AI copyright issue in the blog, and I'm mentioning it now, is because once a big company gets into AI art and gets behind AI art, that copyright issue is going to disappear, because as we know, money talks more important than a lot of what we want it to do. So a lot of laws are going to be changed to favor AI art, whether we liked it or not. And what has happened is Google, Microsoft, and Adobe have already got behind AI art. Whether or not they want to make it public or not, they have invested billions of dollars into AI art generation. And Google, as we all know, has enough money to help laws get changed worldwide, and they have the leeway and the say to do that. So that already is one of the big players that's going to make AI art copyright change to favor AI artists. The second big thing is Adobe. Yes, Adobe is behind AI art. They have Adobe Firefly already. I've used it. It actually sucks really badly. And it is very, very unintuitive and kind of hard to use. And with Adobe being a powerhouse company when it comes to art itself, with Photoshop and Illustrator for images, they are the powerhouse with that. They're a giant representative worldwide of image production and editing. And then you have video production and video editing with Premiere and Audition. Adobe actually takes the cake on those too. And then they have side suites that go in addition with those products. And a lot of artists might say they'll boycott Adobe if they get too heavily invested in AI art, but unfortunately, saying that and doing that are two different things, considering that Adobe has set standards for the entire community that if you refuse to follow, you pretty much can't do digital art. Yeah, so now it comes to the other issue. The other issue is AI art's gonna lose popularity and it's gonna fall off. Yeah, Photoshop still exists. Photoshop is the example that I'm going to use because Photoshop is going to follow that development of Photoshop is going to pretty much outline the development of AI art. Now, why I use Photoshop as an example is because Photoshop is an image processing tool that was not exactly widely accepted when it first came out. Not many people used it, then it had a big boom, and its boom died down a little, but its boom never went away. After a while, it became standardized and widely accepted as if you didn't know how to use Photoshop, then you didn't know how to edit images. That's pretty much what it meant. But what does that really mean for AI art? What it means for AI art is simple. AI art originally came out more than 9 months ago. It came out about 2 years ago. It was not accepted and it was not used widely because it didn't work very well. Then, as of last year, well, this year recently, past 3 months, it's hit a big boom because a lot of changes have happened. A lot of advancements have happened in it and became a lot easier to use and a lot better to use and more widely accepted. So it has its boom. Now, its boom will die down in about 6 months, but its boom will not completely go away. A lot of users that use AI art is actually going to continue to use AI art, despite what most people think. The reason is most people right now think AI art is only being used primarily by people who are using AI art to chase quick clout, to generate some images and chase quick clout, people who are primarily trying to make quick cash off of it, and then people trying to make things fast that they can sell and hire for this AI art to become an AI artist, basically. But you are wrong. That is only actually a small section of the people that use AI art, because those are the people that got into it now, and not the people who've been using it for a while. For instance, I'm not one of those people. I have a paid membership to Midjourney and I use AI art probably every day because it's an interesting thing to use. I use it primarily because I'm an author and I would like to visualize some of the things I draw, and it's far too expensive to actually commission a lot of the things that I would envision. Like one of my artwork, it commissioned for $150 and it was only one character. In the time I've used Midjourney over the past month, I've generated 600 images. And yeah, they're not super good, high quality scale, but they are what they're used for. They help with thumbnails for videos, they help generate art for the technology in my books, or like just the places in my books that it would otherwise be too expensive to constantly pay to have these small one-time things as a project or made into an image. $10 in a month to generate 600 images that I can use, there's no way it would come in close to what I would have to pay an artist. I would have to pay an artist at least $6,000 if I paid $10 for each one. And most of them would not be $10 because most of them are 3D. Some of them are sketch design and so forth. And these are all great points. The ideas that are going around about AI art right now are a little bit different than what they actually are. And this has happened time and time again when it comes to being an author. This has happened in our world time and time again, where things always come up that make us seem like we're going to be outsourced or make us seem like we're going to be replaced, but it never does. We always stay around right after. Now, the biggest example of this is ChatGPT. ChatGPT has been around just as long. Well, actually, it's been around a little bit longer, and it can be used to write things. It can be used to be creative, but the problem is if you try to use ChatGPT as just to be creative on its own, it does not. It usually comes back with something very cookie cutter, and a lot of times if you search for it on plagiarism websites, you will find that it's plagiarized and it's slightly changed. In order to use ChatGPT to be more creative and write something creative, you have to actually input the finished product first, and then it can extend it and make it longer and reword it so it sounds better. But you still have to start with something that you created on your own first. That's the only way for it to work properly, to you to get an output of something truly creative. Now, using that same concept or thought process, the best art that I've seen out of Midjourney or any other art generation AI out there has all come from artists that input actual art for it to change and edit and complete. Nothing has come close to being as good, and all the prompt editing, it still comes out good, but it has a feel to it that is kind of AI. But then again, that's because the tags they all use make it give it that AI feel. Now, if you don't use any references to any person or artist or any style of art in general, when you do a Midjourney prompt, for example, the art you get back is actually quite crazy and is actually quite unique, because I use no reference to any artist when I use any of my prompt, and the art I always get back is actually quite unique. Sometimes it comes out as nonsense, but sometimes it comes out pretty well. And it's just trial and error to get the right word in so that it gives you something that's what you want instead. Now, with that being said, that means AI art in the near future, in a few months, is going to be more of a tool for artists and people that are very creative, like authors, to actually express what they're thinking, versus people that just write prompts and people that use someone else's imagination. For instance, if you hire somebody to write a prompt for you to get a picture, it's going to be a lot harder for them to get what you want like it is now. It is very hard for an AI artist to get the certain picture that you want. I'm actually have more luck getting what I want versus an AI prompt artist, even though what I want doesn't always show up. And that is only because I'm not using tags and references to other people and other art styles, but instead I'm trying to describe it as best as I can imagine it to the AI and use words that will make the AI more responsive. I change 1 or 2 words to get better outcomes. Now, these points are great and everything, but these points are actually mute in comparison to what the final point is. My last point now is going to be. My last point is the development of AI art. AI art just needs to move in one more direction before it becomes something that artists actually will have a hard time competing with. But also, you're going to have to be a lot more creative and a lot more interactive with it in order for it to work out the way you want it to be. And that is basically an eraser. Just like every artist out there has, you have an eraser where you go back and you erase something and you change it to make it look better in the overall picture. That is not something AI art currently has. You can input the picture again and try to reimagine it, but in actuality, what it does is it makes slight changes, but you will never be able to truly go back and say, I want to change the person's face, or I want to erase a couple lines off the person's face and redraw it in a certain way. You can't do that at the moment with AI art. Now, I predict something like this is going to start showing up in AI art in Midjourney 6.0, because no other AI art generation software has come close to Midjourney 5.1. So in 6.0 of Midjourney, there's going to be ways that you can interact with your prompt continuously. So you send it a prompt and it's going to generate the first image, and then you go back and you say, this is what I want to remove, this is what I want to regenerate, and then you keep moving forward from there on. It will even make it easier if you can pinpoint parts of the image you would like to change, like a grid itself, that you would say you want a certain section, like the center of the image, you want that image part regenerated and changed in a certain way. You can regenerate that part of the image only, instead of changing the entire image altogether. And that would be where Midjourney is going to go, because that's the only logical step next for it to go. And once it does that, it's going to completely revolutionize and change the way AI art is done and with how it's seen in general. This is very important because with this addition, being able to reuse part of your image and change parts of the image without changing others, you would be able to start creating things like comic strips and comic books and actual picture books that are not where the characters remain the same, where it's the same actual character, not a different character in each page that just looks similar. Which would then make Midjourney a lot more useful as an art platform and not just an image generation platform, which it currently is. It perceives itself as an image generation platform, not primarily as an art platform, because an art platform, being able to generate actual art means you can keep the same character, but you cannot in Midjourney. It is a very complicated process to do that. Now, this process would also mean Midjourney's tier price would actually go up, but it would usability as an actual platform to generate and use art itself would be actually there, and it would be something that is more useful for paid work. Granted, they would also have to upgrade their image size in a sense, because they don't actually need to do that, because there are many tools that already specialize in making things bigger and more printable and better to use than Midjourney does. Midjourney only acts as the initial starting point when it wants to create the rest of the art. Now, I say 6.0 and I say this is probably a couple months away, but you don't know. This could be what they're about to release now, considering that with the 5.1 release that just happened, they have changed quite a lot of Midjourney to make it more, well, intuitive and better to use it and easier to actually prompt and get a better response to what you actually want. Now, when they'll be able to prompt it so that you can keep characters and keep things in fashion, you can probably even name your character to designate a character as an actual file that you can save on your account and then you can use that same character over would be a step that it has logically coming. Or even a file that you can download as a character file and then you can upload that character file and have Midjourney use that character file, just like if it were a 3D program, because they are trying right now to start incorporating 3D output more and not just art itself. So overall, right now I think AI art is in its initial stages of this first boom, just like Photoshop hit that boom and then it died down and it became less popular, but it started to become and make itself a part of the actual industry of art and graphic art in general. Just like Midjourney is about to die down a little, but it's gonna put its foot stapled in AI generated art and become one of the big companies that people use for AI generated art, as AI generated art becomes a staple in actual art creation. Whereas someone drawing something only is going to be looked at as old-fashioned and outdated, now, whereas everyone thinks you're going to draw something and then you're going to run it through an AI to have it completed and convert it to digital art, because that would actually increase the speed someone can draw and create art for a digital process too. And if you think that's not coming, Pepsi has already shown that that is coming by having one of their commercials be done by Stable Diffusion, which is something that Midjourney is based off of. So AI art is going to be a staple where artists are no longer going to be scanning their work and then they're going to be trying to input it into Photoshop. They're going to scan their work, input it into an art platform, an AI art platform like Midjourney or Stable Diffusion, and get back their final product with a couple changes, and then they can tell it what it wants to change. That is going to be the future of art. And if you don't think so, then I'm sorry to tell you, but that is exactly what happened to writing in general. All authors went through this process about 10 years ago, where if you wanted your stuff to even be considered by a publisher, it had to be properly edited. And one of the cool things was a lot of programs could do the editing that people had to do before. So it became something that was more computer assisted than it was human assisted and human done. So AI art may be scary and it may sound like it's replacing artists, but not to worry, artists. You're going through what's called basically your print on demand platform right now, where anybody has access to make your art and do your art. But still, people that are truly creative are going to be the ones that remain artists and remain on top, and the rest are just going to fall off into people that do it as a hobby or people that do it for work in a corporate setting like logo designers. That's basically what's going to happen. Art itself is going to still remain with artists, regardless of what anybody thinks. AI art is not going anywhere. It's actually just going to get bigger because companies like Google, Adobe, Microsoft, and a bunch of others have already started heading towards developing their own ways of generating AI art. Anyway, sorry for the long video. I know it's not too much about writing and stuff like that, but it does actually play an important part in looking at something that happened to authors years ago and seeing it happen again in the art world, and how they're panicking and freaking out and thinking things are going to go one way, when we've seen time and time again, from the perspective of an author anyway, it's happened in very played out different ways. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you guys subscribe and like the video, and you can leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I'll see you guys very soon in the next video.